Yes. Thank you.
What is your one?
So we are going to do.
What is?
There was one other that might be.
That's all the
Yeah, okay.
presentation.
So
Notice the.
yeah, I'll go.
But it's
I've
the
got
second
more.
part here
Yeah,
in the
that's
same.
it. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
that one, and then
Yes. So you are first or second?
yeah. So should we do that? So do the technical first, and then your example.
Yeah, after the break, I have my presentation with practical examples. So I think it's more logical to start with theory, let's say,
Yeah.
let's go and then go to practical.
Okay.
But if you want, I can also introduce myself, my personal experience,
We do that first.
whenever you want.
Should we do the personal experience first?
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
want, I can do that.
Sure.
I'm talking about myself.
Okay.
no?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So leave that there.
Yes. Yes. And your presentation, do you want?
My
Do you have?
presentation, I have one today and one tomorrow. Alternative to incarceration
Okay.
programs. But this will be after the break.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So. I see. Si quieres te ayudo, no te preocupes. Ujú. Bien, pues vamos a retomar el programa. Bienvenidas, bienvenidos de nueva cuenta en este pequeño break. Muchísimas gracias por toda su paciencia, por seguir las indicaciones de protección civil que son muy importantes. Entonces, pues bueno, vamos con la siguiente mesa, que son fundamentos de ATI, y les dejo con Daniela Kreger, quien es integrante del Instituto NOMAD, quien es de la parte organizadora de este evento. Entonces, un fuerte aplauso para Daniela, por favor.
Muchas gracias. ¿Se escucha bien? Excelente. Bueno, espero que se hayan recuperado un poquitito para poder continuar ahora. Y nos vamos a meter de lleno en el tema de las alternativas al encarcelamiento. Y para ello tenemos a 3 personas expertas aquí que ya han escuchado hoy en parte. Y estoy muy contenta de poder presentárselos porque vamos a poder escuchar de experiencias muy interesantes y aprender de ello también. Y después tendremos un momento para preguntas también. Así que estoy viendo si esperamos un minutito más para que terminen de entrar. ¿Alguien más? Bueno, bienvenidos. Bueno, entonces vamos a dar comienzo al panel de alternativas al encarcelamiento. ¿Quién va a ser el primero que va a hablar? ¿Jason, Philip or Jay? Who is the first? Philip will begin. Excellent. Bueno, Felipe García nos va a acompañar en este primer momento. Adelante, Philip. The floor is yours.
Me llamo Felipe José García, pero soy francés y no hablo español. I'm sorry, mi abuelo, soy de origen española, entiendo bien, pero hablar en español, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Cómo dice fatigo en español? Fatigo. Yeah. So, I'm a program manager for the international department of Villa Marini Foundation and for the partnership and on substance abuse. Mostly I do financial stuff and I train Red Cross and Red Crescent volunteers all around the world. And Villa Marini, I have a presentation on the alternative to incarceration in our center, but so I will not enter deeply in what we do there. I will talk about this later. But as we were talking about our personal experiences, Jason asked me to talk about my personal experience, and I think it's a good idea. So I've been I don't know how to start that, but I'm in recovery. I'm a former drug addict. I've been under heroin for more than 15 years. Mostly smoking and snorting. It was like a self-medication for me. And one day the police arrested me. Okay, and I found myself in a police station in withdrawal crisis, and it was let's say really bad. And the Villa Marini Foundation, where I work now, called the emergency unit of the foundation. And they came in the police station to bring me methadone in order to deal with the withdrawal crisis. And then the day after, when I was in front of the judge in the Court of Justice, they came back and give me another dose of methadone. And so I decided I'm not, you know, normally the normal people think that an addict, especially someone who uses heroin, is a junkie and is in the streets. They have this very wrong image of what a drug user is. But I was not the profile. I belong from a very, let's say, high-level family. I made the university. I was running my own company. So I'm not the cliche, you know. Anyway, the day after, I went to this center to ask for help, because I decided after one night in a prison and 1 night in a police station and 1 week in a prison, trust me, it's not a good experience. It was time for me to stop, so I went there to ask for help. And I always say that the Carabinieri, which is, in Italy, we have police and Carabinieri. Carabinieri are from the army, police are from the, I don't remember anyway. They were, really kind. They arrested me, but they were not aggressive at all. And we talked also. And I always say that they saved, in a certain way, they saved my life. Because they arrested me, they sent me to this person in the foundation. I made my program. I'm under recovery. Next July, it will be 33 years. And I'm really proud of that. And that's it. And then when I finished my treatment program in Villa Marini, the boss there asked me if I wanted to start international activity there. And it's what I did. And here I am today. So just to say that diversion, because this is a kind of example of diversion, it's functional. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Philippe. Stories matter. Stories are important. So let's dive into this concept of deflection, and then we'll also talk about the concept of diversion. So I had mentioned earlier that for the most part, systems generally don't do a good job of being very customizable and meeting an individual's need, right? A system has to do the most good for the most amount of people. And there's not a lot of room in there to change things around. And I'll be talking about the US, and you'll be talking about Britain a bit. But when we think about people's interaction with police and the criminal justice system, there's lots of bad press. There's always been lots of bad press, and there's very few stories of positive interactions. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So the first thing I'll do is just jump back to this idea of, we've used the word addiction today. We've used the word substance use disorder. Regardless of what you call it, most people today would agree there's like a continuum, right? There might be a problem user all the way to I have a severe physiological dependence where I get sick if I don't have my drug of choice. So I'm a clinician, so I care about diagnoses and treatment and all that fun stuff. But it's important that we don't just throw everyone into a bucket and say, if you use this drug, then you're a drug addict. So today we're not trying to say anyone is this or isn't that. We're just trying to talk about people that happen to be using substances that are running into and having contact with the police. Generally, good things don't happen. And not everybody like me would need to go to a big, long treatment program. Some people get better with no treatment. Some people aren't even sick. They're just had an unfortunate circumstance. I find that to be the exception in this context. But so yeah, let's dive into it. So, you know, the drug that's been causing us the most problem worldwide is alcohol. We don't think about that as a drug sometimes, but most countries have some kind of laws around drunk driving, right? Driving while intoxicated. And generally that's rooted in public health. We don't want people to kill other people behind the wheel. Alcohol has a much different stigma than lots of other drugs. So for example, in America, when we look at people that do have substance use disorder, there's one thing that kills them more than anything else, and that's nicotine, tobacco. They die from tobacco-related causes. Again, that's not something that we think about when we say drug typically. When we're talking about deflection, people that are interacting with the police, it's not over nicotine usually. Sometimes it's over alcohol, but more often than not, it's related to other substances. So policing in America has evolved over time, just as we'll say libraries or biblioteca, yeah, have evolved over time. So I used the word America when I meant US. I know the difference, and I'm very sorry for that. So in the US, libraries used to be a place where people would go to read and check out books. Now today with technology, people don't really go there for books anymore. Our libraries have become our homeless shelters in some respects. And so that's to say a librarian who used to be there because they were interested in learning books now is faced with the need to do case management and provide resources and help folks that are experiencing homelessness. The same with the police in the US today. The police typically have contact with individuals for a bunch of reasons, whether they got a call or whether it's their job to patrol a certain area. The police are who people usually call when they don't know who to call. The exception would be medical services, right? Like an ambulance. And with deflection, what we're seeing is people are having contact with the police unnecessarily. People don't know what to do, so they call the police. Or if someone's having a medical emergency, it makes sense that you would call an ambulance. But in the climate that we're looking at right now, these first responders are the first people that are having contact with individuals that are usually impacted in some way by the use of substances. So, for example, we've been hearing a lot about fentanyl in the past couple of years, and we were getting lots of calls for people that had overdosed on fentanyl. And when we would get a call, there would be a police response, but there also would be a paramedic response. Sometimes maybe even the fire department would be there. There's a lot of people going to one call, and the outcome of that call typically would be somebody would be taken to the hospital, and they would be evaluated, and they'd be in another system, and it was really messy. Fast forward to today, that could happen if a bystander would happen to have Narcan or naloxone. They could reverse the overdose right then and there on the spot and get them to medical treatment without using all these other resources. Police don't like having to give people Narcan, but they also don't like wasting their time. And so the idea with deflection is, instead of trying to catch more people or arrest more people that are using substances or doing crimes related to substances, what if we deflected them into a situation where they would get access to resources that they need? So here's the caveat. I had some dental work done last week. They gave me an antibiotic, and after like 3 days, I stopped taking it like I was supposed to. I'm trying to get back on taking it the way I can, but I'm human. When police encounter people or paramedics encounter people that could benefit from housing or food or employment resources or whatever, oftentimes they will offer, something like that to the person they come into contact with. And more often than not, the person is not saying, yes, that's a great idea, RoboCop Jason. Thank you, my friend. I want these 3 resources that you're offering to me. But if this is Jason's 4th time seeing me, and I'm interacting with Jason, and he's offering me a resource, maybe on the 4th time, I might be more interested in taking some of those resources. People are stubborn, and we're fickle, and rarely do we do what we're told. Rarely do we do what makes sense, particularly when we're impacted by substances. So the idea with deflection is we want to try and create all these different pathways to make it easy for somebody to use resources or get connected with things that are beneficial to them. So in a perfect world, everybody would want to go to a detoxification program, followed by a 6-month rehab program and 20 years of this and that. That's just not realistic. That's not how people want to use services or use services. So instead of Jason, the police officer, or maybe me as the first responder, showing up in a situation like this and saying, I know what you need. This is what it is. You should go do it. We're saying maybe today, maybe not today, but here's some option, here's some ideas. We're building a relationship, if that makes sense. And Jason will get a little bit more into another concept. But the idea with deflection is the idea came up this morning about forcing people into treatment or mandating that people participate in a treatment. Those are methods that we've tried throughout history and still do continue to try. Deflection is the opposite of that. It's the carrot instead of the stick, if you will. So I'll give you an example of a specific program that we did in the US. And this was in Southern Illinois. And Southern Illinois in the US is a very rural area. So there's lots of farms. It's very spread out, and like many places in the world, it was impacted by fentanyl. And in rural areas, the police force is very small. Paramedics might be 20 miles away and take them a half hour to get to where they are. And in this particular rural area, they were having, a lot of trouble with fentanyl. And the police department formed a task force with different law enforcement agencies across the state, and they couldn't keep up with the arrests. It was just arrest after arrest after arrest. Turns out a lot of the fentanyl was coming into the community through the mail. So they tried everything. They tried working with the post office and stakeouts and all this other stuff, but the overdose deaths continued, and the police force was overwhelmed, and they decided we need to do something different. And so in this particular case, what happened was the police force got together with some community treatment providers. There was a religious organization that was connected to it. And they formed a coalition, and they got together and decided, hey, let's talk about how to solve this problem. And they recognized that none of them alone had the answer, but they were able to develop a deflection framework where collectively they built a system where the paramedics, the library, and the police force all had a shared goal of helping people overdose less. The police wanted people not to get into the system and take their time, because when I'm waiting outside the hospital for Jason for an hour, when I could be doing something else, that's not a good use of resources. And so to this day, this group has continued to meet. They've developed referral pathways within each other's systems. So the way it works is there's a central phone number that the paramedic or the police officer or the community member has. And when they call that phone number, there's a peer recovery specialist, so a person with lived experience that comes out and meets with that person on site. The police have a choice to arrest or not, and they'd much rather not arrest and connect, the person that received, the call with someone in recovery where they can hear the message more clearly, right? Am I more likely to listen to RoboCop, right? Or somebody with lived experience. And so that's another reason we told a bit about our stories. We think it's important to think about how people are hearing messages. And so not just what is the message, how are people hearing and responding to that message? So deflection, there's lots of different ways to implement it, but I think what's most important with deflection is it's always developed within the community that it's in. No one knows your community better than you. And so it's important that you and people within your community come together to identify a way that makes the most sense to meet whatever the need is of your community, because they're all different. Every community has different needs, just as most people would agree recovery is different for everybody. And there's many different pathways to recovery. And it doesn't work so well when I tell you what I think you need to do, especially when I don't know you. And then the last part I'll, kind of add about this, group that gets together for deflection. They also have people in recovery, people sober. They have treatment providers. The more different stakeholders you can get together and align, the more likely you are to be successful. And I think my last point around deflection is really about alignment. Like, it just so happens Jason is a good guy, but he's in charge of people and a budget. And if I can help him save policing hours by implementing the program, that makes it easier for Jason to sell that to his superiors, right? Same thing with, the healthcare system. If there's lots of people sitting in the emergency room waiting to get care, and I can prevent that some kind of way, then I can get the medical providers on board. For the treatment providers, one of the challenges folks have is managing wait lists and access. What's the most efficient way for me to get people into, my counseling program? And in the US, one of the challenges we have are or people not showing up for their first appointment. It could range from like 50% to 15% in most programs. People won't show up for their first appointment. And part of that is because we probably made them wait for 6 months before their first appointment. Or we asked them to come in the middle of their workday, or they didn't have transportation to get to my clinic that's too far from where they are. Those are all very practical, real things. And when we look at how can we improve those processes, some programs have had peer mentors help transport people to appointments. And we've made it so those peer mentors could help someone get an appointment within a few days instead of a few months. We had to create a pathway to make it easier for people to access what they need when they need it. So I think I'll pause there with deflection. We'll give it to Jason, and he's going to talk a little bit about diversion, and then we'll have time to dig into more aspects and answer some questions.
Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, sorry. I did that last time. Okay, thank you. So the fundamentals of ATI, alternatives to incarceration. I personally don't like the word incarceration. Already we've made a decision to incarcerate or lock someone up. And I think language is really, really key in all forms of policy, particularly when it involves the police, because the police are enforcers. I'm going to ask you a question, and just please shout out the answer as you feel. What do you think of this question? Why do the police have to make an arrest for possession of a drug? Why do the police have to make an arrest? Anyone like to answer? What do you think? Yeah, because it's illegal and it's mandated, it's policy. But why? What is the intention of an arrest? What is the purpose?
Bueno, vamos a partir del hecho de que en nuestro país, México, pues vamos a tener en cuenta que todavía no hay una legalización de las drogas como tal. Entonces, pues si parte de las leyes, pues vamos a ver que pues no pueden tener posesión de droga, pero también se podría pensar en que es más complejo el tema, porque se podría pensar que también la fabricación de drogas en México, como no tiene una manera industrializada legal, no sabemos la higiene con la que se maneje los laboratorios, porque pues están hechos de una manera clandestina. Entonces, pues podríamos partir de eso porque es ilegal y pues aquí involucramos también la sanidad y salubridad en los procesos.
Yes. Good. That's a really good answer. Did it? Yeah.
Que si los arrestan, les están haciendo un bien. Hay algunas personas que realmente creen
Yes.
que la deprivación de libertad es un beneficio, lo que es una burrada, ¿no? Es una bestialidad. Pero tal vez eso, yo tiendo a pensar que es porque es ilegal y el policía tiene un mandato de arrestar a cualquier persona que incurra en un delito.
Yeah. Thank you.
Porque no saben qué hacer con nosotros, porque están operando bajo una ideología que nubla la vista, y esta ideología, como dice la compañera, es la que dice, arréstalo, es peligroso, arréstalo, se va de la norma, se desvía, entonces encarcélalo, aíslalo, como en el caso de la locura.
Yeah. Good answers. And one more?
Pienso que es porque la policía como institución tiene unas dinámicas de trabajo donde deben atender a productividad, a indicadores, entonces esto hace parte de las rutinas típicas de trabajo de las líneas de frente que deben cumplir con metas específicas de trabajo, entonces pueden arrestar a una persona por cualquier crimen.
Yes. They are brilliant. There will be more time. Oh, you go on it. Last one.
Creo que la idea detrás es que, o sea, la idea que se fomenta es que quienes se relacionan con sustancias psicoactivas se relacionan con el narcotráfico, por lo menos aquí en México, porque lo financian mediante su consumo o porque portar sustancias permite la sospecha de que quizás se están distribuyendo también.
Yes, absolutely. These are fantastic examples, really brilliant. And there are threads which I'm going to follow up with now. So there was a young lady behind you that said regulation and decriminalization. So here we are. I'm a senior police officer. I work with the UN and I work with British government, and we should regulate all drugs, not just cannabis, all drugs. The evidence is compelling. The evidence is also compelling that decriminalization it works. We should not be frightened to speak about regulation or decriminalization. Prohibition is more harmful than the drugs. 100%. So the law takes a long time to change. A long time, many years. So what can we do now? And this is the point. To answer that question, why do police arrest? There is a principal ideology that it acts as a deterrent. The fear of an arrest should, it doesn't, should deter you from possessing a drug or using a drug. The law is there designed to protect the public, and actually it's not working because the deterrent effect for the millions of people who use drugs has already failed. That's the evidence. So therefore we need to do something different. To have that conversation politically is tricky, and we need to work together to depoliticize that conversation to create change. So how do we do that? So the first point is, what do we expect of our police officers? What are your expectations of the police? And they will probably, the public would probably be similar to this. Reduce crime. Yeah, we want to feel safe. We do not want to be attacked or robbed on our way home from work. We do not want our houses burgled whilst we're at work. We don't want any harm to come to our children or loved ones. Uphold human rights. This is an interesting one, because the police, they're breaching human rights in many different cases, but most of those they don't understand why, or if they are breaching human rights. One example, somebody is arrested and they spend 16 hours in custody, but beforehand they were in recovery on methadone and they were stable and doing well. Day to day was a challenge, but doing well. They are arrested and they are suddenly no longer allowed their methadone in custody. That's a breach of human rights. But the police think, well, I can't have someone high in custody because we can't interview them. We cannot process them. So they've just sat in a cell high. Can't do that. But actually, that's a medicine. We do not, in police custody, we do not withhold the right to medication for diabetes. Why? Why is there a difference? Methadone is a medication. So breaching human rights does occur, but I would argue unintentionally, but sometimes intentionally, and we have to work with that. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Here we go. Come back to this one. What do you think she's thinking? Is she happy? No. She wasn't happy. the situation leading to this, so Theresa May was the Home Secretary, Minister for Interior Affairs at this time. She was also the Member of Parliament for the area that I was in charge of for policing. And we had a drug-related death of a young woman who was never known to police, never known to drug treatment, and she died following a 6-month period of abstinence and then going back to her abusive partner, and her partner was supplying her heroin. She died in a pub, a bar, in the toilet, and she was very young, and her father asked the police to investigate. We did, and then her father wrote to Theresa May, and she asked us to investigate. My report said our drug policy is wrong. My report urged for a different communication, a different approach to drugs, because there was never any contact point for that young woman, because she feared prohibition. She feared going to a doctor. She feared the system, and that just cannot be right. So as a result, good things did happen. This is the UK National Drug Strategy. It's based, there are 3 pillars: reduce crime, reduce demand, and improve treatment. The outcomes expected this year, we have not achieved yet. We still have record deaths, so we need to work harder, but we need to work collaboratively. So this is a whole system approach to drugs, and drug possession is fundamental to this policy, because we need to decriminalize without changing the law. We need to depenalize people. We are decriminalizing the person at the moment, not the drug. That will come later. So the police, when there is an alternative, the public or the police fear that the public will say, and the media, police are soft on drugs. We are soft on drugs. And the police want to be tough on drugs. The war on drugs, because that's what they've been used to. So soft justice doesn't really feel right for police. So we need to do something different. The current framework, this is now old, there were so many things that could happen to you if you were found with one drug. If you were found with the same drug in 6 different locations, Manchester, Liverpool, London, doesn't matter where, you could receive different outcomes. So that's simplified. So we have a new framework, diversionary caution and community caution. But those are, don't believe, don't trust the wording. They are still punitive. They still require someone to admit an offence. So a police officer would find a drug on someone, and that person would have to admit the possession. But in the grey box, we have a community resolution. And this is decriminalisation, but without saying decriminalisation. So for the first time, the United Kingdom has pre-arrest diversion. So in practice, this is what it looks like. Everybody is eligible. Everybody. It doesn't matter if you've been in prison 20 times or if you are just once first-time child with cannabis. It does not matter if you have crack, meth, cannabis. It does not matter what drug it is that you are in possession of. The presumption that the police adopt the same process each and every time. Pre-arrest, no arrest, no arrest, no interview, and no admission of guilt required. Because criminalization is stigmatizing, and it creates racial disproportionality. it causes more harm than good. We need to change the system. So now every police officer adopts the same process. No arrest, no interview, no admission. So what happens then? So, sorry, Chief. If I found Jay with drugs, I would say, and I was the police officer, I would say, I found this on you. I have to take this, of course, but I would like you to receive some education, awareness, or some harm reduction. And it might be that Philip is using crack and he's homeless. He does not need any education about drugs. So what he might need is a disposable crack pipe and homelessness or harm reduction, but not by the police. Never by the police. The police take the drug step away. Drug services come together. Homelessness, outreach, support, harm reduction, Red Cross, it does not matter who, but the civil society take over. And the speed, the evidence tells us the success is about the speed of that intervention. So the individual is seen by civil society on the same day or the day after at the very least, because it's the speed of the interaction. That's the crucial element. So the police officer found the drug. They have an app on their phone and they just click the button, drugs, location, contact details for you, and the civil society meet you. Police are gone, 10 minutes. So before, the police would arrest you, you would have 14 hours in custody and a criminal record. Now, none of that. 10 minutes, app gone, police gone. Civil society. What do you need? No arrest, no interview, no criminal record. That person's life is preserved. No harm, no incarceration, no harm. So the officers, the police need training. And in the first session this morning, somebody mentioned about police training. Like they have their governance and their manual instructions. Well, we should not have police training police. We need civil society, you, to come in. We need to identify, and we'll come on to this later in the second session, in the third session. Who can deliver that? Who can deliver that? Because police should not train police, because we need to change the culture. Police culture is punitive. Enforcement, we need to change it. We need to humanize those officers. And people with lived experience are compelling. It's not just police that have a punitive system. We heard earlier on, the medical system is punitive. We heard schools and education systems are punitive. So now in the United Kingdom, we had a very high number of young people being excluded from school for drugs or vaping or other behavior. Now, the child, the same system as the police, but the teacher now says, app, student, civil society, there's the child. No longer is that child excluded from school. And that's in the United Kingdom context. But that must be similar in other jurisdictions too. We need to treat schooling, education as an educational opportunity. And it's consistent through businesses too, that we would like to extend the model beyond police, beyond schools, into businesses. If an employee has an issue with drugs or alcohol, why stop and fire them? You have trained them. They are a good employee. Keep them in their workplace, and civil society come in to the workplace. There are better outcomes for everybody: the individual, the police, the school, the employer, but the person. That will reduce demand through education. This is evidenced. It has been evaluated. This is not deflection. So pre-arrest diversion sits just after deflection. Deflection is before. So if you have someone who's homeless and they are using or injecting drugs, yes, police can deflect there. But if a crime has been committed, the police have to do something about that. And we are giving them a simple option, a simple solution through deflection or diversion for them to have a positive outcome. The police need it to be simple and easy and swift. And there is nothing soft about preventing death. So, key principles. Excuse me one moment. I learned this from my days undercover on the street. And I heard someone who was on crack, heroin for 30 years, never been in successful with rehab, been in and out of rehab, but always relapsed. He said he did not know until the very end that you need to recover from the trauma. In his case, it was PTSD. He was a war veteran and he'd seen some horrific sights. That's just one example out of many different types of trauma. But you need to treat what's underlying. How can you access that if you do not know it's there? I was going to ask you, what is the most harmful drug of all? If you had the league table, what would you put at number one? What's most harmful drug? Who said? Oh, it's a couple. Alcohol. Yes. Yes, definitely. Alcohol. This is a ladder of harm. You may have seen this before. Alcohol, huge. But alcohol is legal. So there's a difference between stigma for alcohol and a difference with other drugs. And we need to depenalize that conversation, destigmatize that conversation. Jay mentioned that tobacco is far more addictive than cannabis, far more harmful than cannabis. Kills many more people than cannabis. Yet the addiction may well be because someone who uses cannabis with tobacco is actually just addicted to the tobacco and that education. And this is just examples that we use to inform behavior change. In the UK, we have a big problem with nighttime, parties, nightclubs, cocaine, alcohol. No one knows about the toxicity between alcohol and cocaine and cocoethylation. And that kills people. It kills people. The principal job of the police is to preserve life. So therefore, helping someone to do education is really critical. And SSRIs, how antidepressants. In the United Kingdom, 8 million people are prescribed antidepressants. How that interacts with alcohol is very adverse and harmful. And helping people, I have a friend, a little fly that's flying around. How helping people understand that is really key. We really need to help people understand. So it's not just drugs that is a lever to change. HIV, AIDS, needle exchanges. The police have another role to help harm reduction. If you imagine the police being the largest harm reduction network in the entire world, we would transform communities through deflection, through diversion. Needle exchanges in the United Kingdom are a great example of this. So we have free needle exchange and foil and citric acid for heroin, obviously, and crack. And now we are seeing that because of nitazines and synthetics, our heroin market is shrinking and our crack market is expanding. We need to be innovative and find out how to reduce harm. So now we are starting to introduce glass crack pipes into our needle exchanges. And for the first time, we are seeing hundreds of people who use crack come into harm reduction for the first time ever. And it's a golden opportunity to reach people where they need it the most. And you heard earlier on, Jay mentioned you need to reach people where they are in society. It's coming to them and offering what people might need. No fear, no stigma, no shame. Police now have vending machines on the exits to police custody, because when somebody is arrested, their paraphernalia is taken for safety, and police don't give it back. Now someone can access free crack pipe, needles, and naloxone on the exit point. No judgment, no stigma. That's the police station. For the first time, they're being proactive to reduce harm. And HIV and bloodborne virus reduction is a key lever to this, because now the conversation, like we saw in the 1980s with needle exchange and HIV epidemic, it's no longer about drugs, actually. This is now about people from across society that are vulnerable to HIV. Not just people who inject drugs now. This is wider. So it's actually the police are saying, this now could be my neighbor or my son or daughter. And they are personally invested to reduce harm. Don't forget the power of seeing other worldwide campaigns to reduce harm and the benefits of influence. So punitive laws and policies. In red, these are all of the countries that still criminalize people for drugs. This needs to change. We need to see much more blue. And the criminalization of drug use, studies have found that more than 80% of studies found that criminalization has a negative effect on HIV prevention. This is not new science. We understand this already. For years, we understand that policing and enforcement can cause harm, more harm than the drugs. So we need to work together to change. That's it. So do you want to describe Marine? You could do, or shall we open it to questions? I've only got 5 minutes. Just excuse me one moment, sorry. 15:15, so we've got half an hour. Or we could do questions now and then do the afterwards. Yeah. So shall we do questions? Yeah. Thank you.
¿Tienes el micrófono por ahí? Muy bien. Tenemos un momento para preguntas, intervenciones cortas. ¿Hay alguien que quiera decir algo? Sí, por favor.
Buenas tardes. La semana pasada, justamente en ese lapso, surgieron 12 eventos en el metro. Fue en torno a personas probablemente con una crisis en cuestión de salud mental, de las cuales pues salieron pues sí, con lesiones, otras personas usuarias de este sistema de transporte, e inmediatamente la correlación son personas usuarias de sustancias psicoactivas, ¿no? Y la respuesta institucional fue poner a policías con perros en las estaciones para identificar a personas usuarias. Y entonces mi pregunta puntual sería, desde esta perspectiva, filosofía y metodología de la deflexión, ¿Cuáles creen que serían como estas estrategias o esta estrategia para implementar en estos casos específicos? Por un lado, pues entendemos que el trabajo de la policía muchas veces está enfocado tal vez a proteger al resto de la población, pero ¿cómo mediar esta protección al resto de la población sin que eso interfiera con también poder anteponer, pues sí, los derechos o poner en el centro a la persona que necesita tal vez una intervención en crisis, por ejemplo? Gracias.
So that is a very good question. So we have experienced the same situation in the United Kingdom. The first solution was to tackle the media. So the media were over stigmatizing spice or novel synthetics, and they were using terminology such as zombies and demonizing people who use that drug. The impact of that is that that person would then be far more reluctant to seek help because they were already demonized and already marginalized from community. What hope is there if you are in that situation? So the media play a really important role, and how civil society, but also police, the police actually can fight the media. They can fight back against, they are a powerful voice, the police, and they can fight back against that negative media portrayal of people who use spice. And then we have to understand, why is that person using spice in the first place? And it's because it's very cheap. It's very available. The other reason is the lack of drug checking. So there's a high likelihood that individuals buy a particular substance, believing it to be something else, and actually the realization it is a harmful synthetic that they did not intend to buy in the first place. Drug checking, so where people can receive analysis, instant analysis about the actual substance, what it actually is. Once the evidence says that once people realize what's inside their drug, 25% of people that undertake drug checking forfeit their drugs because they do not trust it. And they also forfeit their supplier. So there are many aspects about how to tackle harmful drugs like this. But public awareness is absolutely key, because it's not just mental health. It's actually, the drug is actually making that person act in that way. Is that their fault? And it's not really. It's not their fault. It's the situation that's led them to use that drug.
If I could just briefly add, we have unrealistic expectations of our police and our doctors. Everyone's expected to be a miracle. We can't ask our police officers to be psychologists or physicians. So we have success with co-responders, right? Putting mental health professionals with the officer in responding to incidences, and they're able to oftentimes de-escalate.
Have you got any experience with spice?
We have another commentary.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Comentaban que en el proceso las asociaciones civiles son las que dan el acompañamiento, en este caso para evitar que la policía sea quien interroga a la posible persona. En el tema acá en México o incluso a nivel mundial, uno de los focos rojos o focos complicados de las asociaciones civiles es el tema de la autofinanciación. Es un tema económico que lo lleva a subsistir. En el caso exclusivo de Reino Unido, las asociaciones civiles que fungen como acompañamiento reciben algún dividendo por parte del gobierno por estar haciendo este tipo de acciones. Muchas gracias.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, there is a national drug treatment grant that is given to all drug treatment providers, but it's not just the burden, the pressure on drug treatment is immense. So there are innovative ways to seek extra funding. One of those currently, I was going to share this in the next session actually in more detail, is at the moment there is a huge campaign from retailers, so big business, and they are complaining about the levels of crime, shoplifting, theft from stores. And what are the police doing about it? Now, of course, the police want to, make a good impression. So they are arresting more people, sending more people to prison. And now we have the revolving door effect again. That's not good. So what we're saying to civil society and the whole partnership, which I'll explain in the next session, are saying to the retail industry, well, think differently about your security. Think differently about how you can actually invest some of your profit into drug treatment or prevention. So those needle exchanges, the vending machines, some of which are paid for by the wider system, the retail industry, those who shout the loudest about the police taking action can actually fund that might not be appropriate for every area, but it's looking elsewhere where the funds are. One big win for us was the criminal assets. So police seize criminal assets all of the time, and usually they sell them and it goes into a police budget. What we're doing now is reinvesting those criminal assets into drug treatment. That's not new. That goes on everywhere across the world. But that is a good message against the traffickers, about the suppliers. It's a good message that your profits, if you're caught, are going to go back into treating people. And that's quite compelling.
So no more interventions, no more questions? Yes, please. Please, yes.
Gracias. Bueno, en México la situación de los policías es bastante compleja. Hay una película documental en Netflix que se llama No es otra película de policías, donde denuncian los abusos en los cuales ellos sufren estructurales, ¿no? Ellos tienen que pagar por tener una mejor arma, ellos tienen que pagar por tener un mejor chaleco y tienen una cuota que tienen que cumplir para el número de personas que hayan detenido. Entonces, también sus salarios son muy bajos, son de estructuras sociales bastante bajas y sufren muchas violencias, también las mujeres policías, ¿no? Dentro de esta estructura. Y la cuota que ellos tienen que cumplir, se les hace más fácil aprender a personas usuarias de sustancias, sobre todo jóvenes, porque pueden darles dinero, pueden quitar celulares, etcétera. No sé cómo sea la situación de la policía en Europa o en Estados Unidos, ya que aquí sí hay una cuestión muy fuerte de corrupción y de pronto se criminaliza también desde la otra esfera a la policía porque son corruptos, porque hacen mal su trabajo, pero también no se reflexiona acerca de las condiciones que tienen como trabajadores del Estado, ¿no? Que justo muchos de ellos han tenido que ser cuestionados por sus propios jefes, o sea, coercionados, para que puedan o que tengan que entrar a estos círculos criminales. Gracias.
Thank you. That's a great question. Policing culture is a wicked problem, and it's not going to be solved by the police themselves. And in my own experience and that of working with the UN and the Rome Consensus, so we work with many different jurisdictions from Africa to the Indian continent, everywhere, Eastern Europe too. Corruption always comes up, or exploitation, or violence against women and girls. Those arguments are the same throughout the world. the consistent message to change culture is that police have to change within, but with maximum support for the change makers within the police. There will be police officers out there who will want to create change and make their environment better. And we need to find them, civil society needs to find them, support them, and we need to champion them. And that is difficult. And it's not easy. I guarantee it's not easy. But we need to create the right environment to recognize that they are pioneers, recognize that those police officers, they will be there now. You probably know people in your working life within the police, and they're good cops. They have a heart and they want to create change. But how do we as civil society give them that platform and protect them? That's what's needed. It's not just one ingredient. There's not quick fix.
Okay, thank you. Muchas gracias. Philippe, will you be the next?
Yes.
Excelente. Entonces seguimos con Felipe García, que nos va a contar sobre la experiencia de Villa Maraña.
So on this presentation, I have some practical examples of alternative to punishment approaches or programs that we apply in Villa Maraini. But first, maybe I will highlight the services that we provide where we have alternative to incarceration. But you are hearing and listening about Villa Maraini since this morning, but maybe you don't know what is Villa Maraini. It's the place where I work. So Villa is the biggest rehabilitation / treatment center in the city of Rome. It's very big. And you change, you have to point there.
Help.
Help.
Society, come and help.
Yeah. I don't know.
Technology.
Very good.
Dejar de compartir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Now.
Let me try.
No veo.
Let me try.
No, pero
Let me try.
Yeah.
So wait, how can I move? This way and this way, this way. Okay, we have it. I'll try again from this place, but if it doesn't work, I will go back there. Okay, so let's start. The center was opened in 1976, so it's more than 40 years ago. We take care of people who use drugs, applying the Red Cross, Red Crescent fundamental principles. First of one, humanity. So we are Red Cross. We are part of the movement of Red Cross and Red Crescent. Sorry, thank you, Daniela. We are based in Rome, in the city of Rome, in the center, in the Italian Red Cross headquarters. But we do the job for the Italian Red Cross. So we are Red Cross, but we have separate administration for political reasons. But I mean, we do the job. We are the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent reference center on substance abuse. And we are also the Italian Red Cross national agency on substance abuse. So for all these kind of topics, they refer to us. Both the IFRC and both the Italian Red Cross. For us, abstinence is not a precondition for treatment. That means that you can have access to treatment also if you are an active drug user. This is very important because you have to open your doors to all the people that are in need. We listen and treat each individual as a unique entity. This was said by Mauro this morning. We are all different, so we need to adapt the therapy to the individual and not vice versa, not the contrary. And so in this center, we provide a wide range of possibilities, services, call them how you want, from very low threshold services to high threshold services to around 600 people who use drugs every day. And we apply the continuum of care concept. And I will talk about this in the next slides. Not this one. So we can divide the services that we provide there in 3 different levels, very low, and high level. In the very low thresholds, this is only the main services we provide because we provide more than this, but we have in the very low, we have the outreach units. So we talked about outreach units programs this morning. We go into different places of the city to provide it's a needle exchange, mostly it's a needle exchange program. So we provide clean materials to people who inject drugs, and they bring back used materials that we destroyed. And we do overdose intervention also on sites made by non-medical staff in outreach. I mean, we have an emergency unit, which is open 24/24. Mostly they call us from police station or carabinieri station. When somebody's under arrest, they call us and we go there to give methadone to the person who is under arrest. We go also in the Court of Justice for the same also for giving methadone. Then we have the middle services. We have the spot, which is, we call it spot, it's an orientation center. It's a place where people who decided to quit can do it, can start to think about next steps. Of course, the very low threshold services, all the clients we have there, they are almost all active drug users. In the low threshold services in the orientation center, they're supposed not to use, but if they relapse, I said that before, abstinence it's not a precondition, so they are supposed to start being sober. But if they relapse is a part of the therapy, so we don't exclude them on treatment. We have a drop-in center. Okay, it's a classic drop-in center where people who use drugs that come from the street, mostly they come from the street. They can stay there during the day to have a shower, to have therapies, to talk with the psychologist, to have food, and it's totally free of charge. Actually, it's the starting point. The starting point for therapy, it's right there. We have night shelters, so where they can stay during the night. We have different levels of night shelters for high-level services and for low-level services, because we cannot mix the people. And then we have these high-level services where people are supposed to be drug-free. So one is a semi-residential community, so they stay there during the day. One is a full residential, and one is an outpatient program, because a lot of people cannot quit their job to undertake a program. So we have this specific outpatient program for people like that, because to undertake the other two, you need to stay there 24/24 or during the day. And the ATI, let's say ATI approaches are the one in red, so emergency, prison, and full residential. So the emergency unit. We opened these services in 1994. I told you we have a free number. It's open 24/24, and they call us for emergencies, for overdoses, for a lot of, for violence in families and stuff like that. Through this service, we bring also methadone to people who are under arrest at home. So they need therapies, they're at home, so we go there and bring methadone. We do intervention in all the territory of the city of Rome. But like I said before, mostly all the calls come from police stations and carabinieri when they need assistance when they have people in withdrawal crisis. they need assistance and they call us and we go there. And it's more an humanitarian approach, let's call it like that. But you can imagine how difficult it's for a police officer that when someone is under arrest in a cell downstairs in withdrawal crisis, making trouble, shouting, you know, it's peaceful both for the drug user and the police officer, you know. And it's the reason why they started to call us, because we don't have any written agreement with the police. Just a pilot project with the Court of Justice. But I don't know how to say passaparola. They started to call us because one day one guy called us asking for help, and then they talk together in the police and the carabinieri. And then now we receive 2, 3, 4 calls every day, mostly during the night. And that's it for the prison project. No, emergency unit, sorry. I put some data, 786 interventions in 2023. Mostly, you can see carabinieri and police. So we go there every day. We are allies with them now. And it's interesting when you look at the data that a lot of people that we receive in treatment, we met them through the services. So the police call us, we meet the clients, we call them clients, I don't like this word, but the police call us, we meet them, and then they create the link between civil society, treatments, and the law enforcement. But the number is quite high, in my opinion. Prison project, so this is a specific project to work inside prison, to bring psychotherapy and counseling inside prison for drug offenders. We have specific branches in the city of Rome for drug offenders because mostly all of them have therapies. So when you are under methadone or other treatments, we have specific branches in the city. And we go in these specific branches inside prison to support them and also to understand who is or not eligible for alternative to incarceration. Because in Italy, if the sentence it's under 6 years for not violent offenses, I don't know if I'm clear. So if the sentence is under 6 years for not violent crimes, you can undertake a program in a rehabilitation center instead of being in prison. So it's according to the law. If the crime is violent, the conviction, the sentence must be under 4 years. Yeah, and we provide also free counseling with lawyers, judges, and health professionals inside prison. But let's say that the most important point for these services is to contact possible eligible people to come in alternative to treatment in the center. In 2023, we met around 81 inmates inside prisons, and 27 of these inmates were diverted in treatment inside the Villa Maraini. And we receive a lot of letters because the inmates, they write letters to the center to ask for assistance, you know. So, and but we receive from judges 64 availability for 64 inmates to come, but we don't have the place to have all of them. So only 27 in 2023 diverted to the treatment center, but we have this diverted to this full residential rehabilitation program. So this is diversion, at least. This is really diversion. Also, if this is an alternative center to detention, it's open 24/24, and slowly, according to if they are going good or not, I mean, they can go back home, and I mean, it's dependent on the individuals. It's the therapeutic program with psychologists and professionals, and I mean, it's a rehabilitation center. They have a lot of activities. They do a lot of stuff. They have therapies. They do group. We involve the families because involving the families in treatment is very important because the problem is not only the guy, but also, I mean, all the families. We do drug tests in this center because they are obliged to be drug-free, and the police come every day, twice a day, 3 times a day to check with the list of the names and check if they are in the center. Okay. They are not allowed to move from this center. Yes, police check, and we had 37 inmates in 2023. Only 2 guys escapes. Of course, we have to communicate to the judges. Every month we send reports to the judges. Okay, for each person that is in treatment in the center. But they are inside the criminal justice system because it's diversion. So it's not like deflection or pre-arrest. Okay, they are inside the criminal justice system. They are on the alternative to detention, but it's a very long process and not so expensive because you know when you are in the criminal justice system, it's a long process to go out. You need to pay your lawyers, and I mean it's expensive, both for the individual and for the system. Huh? It's cheaper to have someone in treatment than in prison. Yes, 37 in treatment, 2% escape, and we organize meeting with families, and we do therapeutical groups. And just last but not least, I've told you we don't have an MOU or an agreement with the police and the Carabinieri in the city, but we are working on this. It's a long way, but it's on the way. We are working on this. We needed to formalize the collaboration between us and the police. And we talked about training. We do a lot of training for police staff as NGO doing the job. We do a lot of training for police staff and for prison staff also. Because there is a difference between the police and between the police staff, prison staff. They don't work together, okay? And that's it. This is the goals of this kind of agreement we would like to have with the police. So to promote a human and non-stigmatizing approach, launch pilot actions on the US model, reduce overdoses death by training the police on how to manage overdoses in the streets. This is very, very, I mean, it will be a very big achievement if we manage to do that because they don't want to do it. Actually, we do overdoses in the street made by non-medical staff, former drug addicts. And that's it. That's it.
Thank you, Philip. Muchas gracias.
And this is me. I was visiting the deflection programs around Boston in a police station. So I went into the ES to see with my eyes what was going on there. And it's very impressive to see the police with the methadone in the car. So they go around the cities, they have methadone in the car. Not methadone, sorry, naloxone.
Naloxone. Ok. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Vamos a tener tiempo de un receso ahora y después vamos a continuar con esta temática. Todavía queda.
Is there questions?
After the pause, we will continue with ATIs. Ok, entonces tenemos unos 15 minutos de pausa. Creo que arriba todavía queda algo de café, agua y alguna galleta. Y nos vemos en 15 minutos aquí otra vez. Muchas gracias.
It was good. Really?
Really good.
Really? Because I can't see the screen.